Much love and many blessings. Now moving on to the fixed sign of Aquarius and moving through the adventurous and fiery changes and really just the unconditional blessings and warmth of the Aries season. The message that we have for Aquarius during this time is one that speaks to a good omen, speaks to a much deserved praise and needing to allow your shoulders to relax, allow your muscles and your energy field to relax. Receive love and appreciation. And for you Aquarius, especially with events and just how everything is synced up leading up to this Aries season, leading up to this month, leading up to this moment, it can be hard to trust the intentions of those around you. There's been betrayals, there's been some misunderstandings, and in a sense there's been wanting to connect with those who are important to you, but it's just feeling as if they're not quite understanding where you're coming from, not necessarily, you're a little bit ahead of where the perception is as far as what's important during this time. And because of how recent events have played out, really there was some sacrificing and some throwing under the bus and just essentially decisions made in a state of survival versus being made from a state of love. A lot of perseverance and preservation doesn't leave room for consideration. So there's been some hurt hearts. So that may leave you during this time of wondering whether or not you can trust what's being presented to you, what people's motives are, and if you should be open. There's a bit of cautioning and trying to decide like what's being presented is like, hey, is this really what I say it is? You know that fucking tuxedo mask meme where he's like catching that butterfly. It's like, you know, you're looking at the situation and it's in hand. It's like, is this really what's being presented? Is this really a gift or is this something more? And you don't like feeling that way, but you're right within your spirit, your traumatized spirit to question the things being presented to you. But with this blooming season, the Aries season has been trying to show you with the days getting longer, there's also more light coming. So you don't have to focus on the winter, you don't have to focus on the dark. You can focus on the good things. The winter season is really melting over, and this is an opportunity for you to start focusing on the light that's being presented in the situations and in the connections and in the energy around you. To receive love and appreciation. Appreciation is one of those things that requires you to maybe have to do some discernment, to maybe have to look. And discernment comes from a space of the throat chakra or a taste. Because we discern, we differentiate situations through taste. And separating flavor is breaking things down. So your call to sift through the love and appreciation, discern the quality of in which you accept love in your space. Or have you been accepting love within your space, or have you been closing off? Have you been kind of alienating yourself because events have been showing a pattern that, you know what, this is not going to work out in my favor. People have really been treating me like the eyeball or just been taking advantage of me because I have this detached nature, or because that I don't operate in a normal way. That can just be taken as, oh well, you're not normal, so I can treat you any kind of way. And sometimes you have to remember, Aquarius, that people will treat you, people are quicker to get upset or to feel a simple emotion than to admit that they were wrong. People are quicker to get angry than they admit that they're wrong. And Aries is a fiery disposition. It's very easy to get into basic emotions than to actually delve deeper than the surface level of what triggers the emotion. And that's not a wonderful space to be in. Queen of Cups, King of Air. Queen of Cups, King of Air. This is not speaking to deep emotions and not recognizing or taking accountability. Queen is dealing with the feminine, the divine feminine aspects, and definitely with the cups being a very internalized, there's a deeply felt feeling, a deeply felt sensation during this time. But with the inversion, it shows that there was a lot of hurt, there's a lot that's diluted the space and the connections that you're in. And when we will operate through a diluted lens, when we operate through a traumatized lens, then we see the world around us in a traumatized way. So Spirit is calling you to receive love with appreciation, to operate with love and appreciation. So this is calling you to move in a space that takes account of the feelings that you taking in. Because I hate when people say, oh, you know, everything happens for a reason. That's like positive reaffirmation or re-pivoting of a situation, and it's a way of downplaying something that happened in your life, or making light of a pain that's happened. You should never downplay a pain that's happened to a person, or just say that, oh, everything happens for a reason. That's fucking bullshit. Everything that happens to you, it happens, and you have to feel it fully and allow yourself to go through those experiences so you can gain those wisdoms from those sufferings. So you never deserve anything that happens to you, but you do have to own the reality of what's happened, which is why you see the King of Air, because there's a way that you're looking at the events, the experiences, and the wisdoms that are taking place, and you may not actually be growing through them. You may be allowing them to lock you in place, and may allow you to get into your coldness, to close off and to kind of brush everybody off and to walk in a bravado. Because operating from a space, you're making this decision to operate from a headspace that's cold and calculated and keeps everybody at a distance, because you don't want to experience those hurts, those pains, and people really just playing with your heart. There's new people coming into your space during this time that are your spirit's calling you to want to connect and to build upgraded connections. This isn't about taking existing connections and upgrading them, but this is about dropping off old perceptions and dropping off old patterns, so that there's room for new connections, healthy connections. There's room for the love and the desires of your heart to take full bloom. With the King of Air being here, especially what they're representing in the Aries and the Aquarius sign, this is representing a detachment from the emotional matters that you may be hung up on, and more so existing in a space that allows you to operate independently without compromise. We are operating without compromise. But this isn't a compromise so much to the people or the external projections. This is more of a lack of a compromise for your heart. This is actually a self-sabotage, because you're not compromising because of a wounded ego. You're not compromising because of a traumatized heart and a damaged inner child. It's time to acknowledge the inner self and to recognize where the pains have come from. When we don't acknowledge our pains, we tell ourselves that, nope, I'm okay, but we're really lying to ourselves and creating more abnegation and diminishing, and really creating a situation where we go through like a psychological amnesia, rather than actually be honest about the situation and say, hey, I didn't like what happened here. This really traumatized me. And instead of closing off, but actually working to heal in men. Healing is a process. Healing is a process. So healing is first about admitting that what you experience is not something that you want to experience again, so that you can work to create healthy barriers and boundaries. But when we run, or when you run from a matter that caused trauma and put up a mental barrier, you're actually not addressing the matter. You're more so running from the situation. So when these situations come up again, well, especially like I'm thinking on the Capricorn effect coming up at the end of the month, when these situations come up again, you think that you've healed from them, but when they're presented to you again, you end up turning back into that little boy or that little girl that was faced with those traumas and not knowing how to heal or to have the tools to be able to stand strong in those situations. With the message coming to your spirit during this Aries season, it's really important to call awareness to the different sensations or feelings that you have been experiencing during this month. You're usually, while you're used to being having abrupt changes within perception and emotion, you may not necessarily be used to the abruptness of the people around you not staying consistent. The reason that you're able to move the way you do is because usually when you come back to a people or a dynamic, those things will usually be consistent, even if you may not necessarily be. There's usually a balance with anything in life. So for the situation for you to not necessarily be consistent, that means that something around you has to create some type of anchor. So there is a call as well within your awareness to start creating an anchor within your emotional awareness, because there's not an acknowledgement of your inner feelings. And without acknowledging your inner feelings, you can't make sound decisions. You're basing off of bad plans, bad strategies. You got a bad playbook. As we move through the Aries season, as you take your divine breath, ask yourself, in what areas can you bring awareness to the neglect that you've had within your heart? In what areas have you been telling yourself that you've been denying the hurts and pains that are existing within your energy field? In what areas have you been denying these and the connections, both personal and interpersonal, within your space? Bring awareness to the changing mindsets that you've had within your own ego. Have you denied emotional feelings because they feel as if they're not relevant, or that they're for kids, or that they don't have a place in your life? As you move through this Aries season, what new sensations and feelings have you been feeling within your disposition that have been coming up, and how have you been acting on them? Have you asked questions to your body and to yourself why you're experiencing these things, and how you can improve and move with healthy direction within your space? Let these things and these elements resonate within your energy field, within your psyche, and within your soul. Decide what's best for you. Much love, many blessings, and Ashe.